G'day there guys, it's your boy Markee and welcome back to another episode of r/revenge. If you enjoyed today's content, please do tell me what you think about it down in the comments below. What would you do in these situations? Who knows? Are you going crazy like me? Maybe we are. With that all said and done, I do hope you enjoyed today's episode. Sit back, relax, and enjoy. Thank you. Posted by user Mikey Audrey Myers. Titled, Boyfriend cheats on me with my step-sibling, so I get him kicked out and destroy his relationship with his parents. Hi Reddit people. I've been wanting to post my story on here for absolutely ages, but I just never got around to doing it. So then I figured, since I have a Reddit account now, I might as well post it. When I was around 17, I started dating a guy who was 19. I'll call him Jake for the sake of this post. Also, age of consent where I live is 16, so nothing illegal happening here. We got on well, spent a lot of time together, and cared for each other a lot. We even started talking about living together once we both moved out. We were a perfectly happy couple. Or so I thought. You see, after we'd been dating for a few months, something in Jake changed. He was getting a lot more distant. Whenever he was with me, he'd be checking his phone constantly. We stopped spending as much time together, and he started to get really funny about public affection, regarding things like hand-holding and stuff. He also seemed to start caring less and less about my feelings. I used to have a bit of a thing for humiliation in the bedroom, nothing too far, and we'd spoken about what Jake should and shouldn't say, but he started to get more and more degrading. He'd tell me how no one would ever love me, and would pick on my insecurities. I actually broke down crying a few times when this happened. To give him a bit of credit, the first few times he did stop everything he was doing and apologize and cuddle with me until I felt better. But eventually that stopped too, and he just began rolling his eyes and telling me to grow up. He was like a completely different person. The insults started to seep into our everyday life. He'd pick on my appearance a lot, bring up my family, as I was dealing with a lot of family issues at the time, bring up the fact that I slept around before we started dating, a sort of rebellion caused by the family issues, etc. If I got upset by it, he'd just leave the room and let me cry by myself. I started to feel like it was my fault our relationship was falling apart. Maybe I just wasn't good enough for him. I knew deep down that he was cheating on me, and that was confirmed when I got a message from a guy, David, on Facebook, telling me that he'd been sleeping with Jake. He apologized profusely and told me that he broke things off with Jake as soon as he found out that he had a boyfriend. I couldn't be mad at David. It wasn't his fault. We spoke for hours, and I reassured David that it wasn't his fault and that he had done nothing wrong. David also helped me stop making excuses for Jake's attitude and the way that he'd been acting. He was a godsend. The thing that truly broke me happened not too long after the cheating was discovered. We'd been arguing a hell of a lot more. Then he decided to do something absolutely unforgivable. You see, I had a strained relationship with my father for years. He would cheat on my mother constantly, and eventually he settled down and had kids with a girl he'd been seeing behind her back. He did try to have some sort of relationship with me till I was about 13, 14-ish, and then decided that he didn't love me as much as his other kids, and we stopped any and all contact. It broke me, and it still hurts to think about to this day. Anyway, Jake went out of his way to find one of my step-siblings online and slept with them. He bragged about it the next day, and my step-sibling actually posted online about what had happened, and I received a bunch of messages from their friends telling me how I had deserved it. This was probably the lowest point in my life, and I hated myself, partly for allowing it to happen, and partly because I had started to believe what they were saying. My only solace during this time was David. I didn't want to burden my friends with my problems, and David was one of the only people who knew firsthand what Jake was like. We spoke for a few weeks, and eventually, talk turned to revenge. I had tried calling things off a couple of months prior due to Jake's awful behavior, but he started with the apologies and telling me he didn't mean it, he'd never do it again. He even spoke to some of my family members who, unknowingly, pressured me to get back together with him as we were such a sweet couple. I hadn't wanted to tell them the real reason that we'd broken up, so I kept the details pretty vague, though I'm pretty sure some of them had seen my step-siblings post and knew why I didn't want to be with him. After weeks of talking and planning, I had finally had enough and decided to do something about it. My father wasn't exactly a rich man, but he worked a pretty well-paying job and earned enough money to live fairly comfortably. He had begun spreading rumors around when I was younger, during a custody battle with my mother, that he had set up a trust fund for me and there was enough money there to get me set up in my own place when I was 18, plus a bit extra. I knew that this was absolute bullcrap. He tried to get out of paying child support all the time. Of course, he'd never set up a trust fund for me. However, Jake didn't. We had never spoken about it a lot, but he'd heard the rumors, and I just always say what I told you folks. My father was an appalling parent who grudged paying my mother child support, so why the hell would he set up a trust fund? But Jake wouldn't listen. He even did his own research into the type of job my father worked and came up with an estimate of how much he thought my father was earning. Though, to his credit, he did drop the subject whenever I asked him to. For a while anyways. I decided to use this to my advantage. Jake and I were still dating, though I avoided him at any chance I got. Until one night, where I sat him down and told him that since I'd be turning 18 in a couple of weeks, I'd started thinking about us getting our own place, with the trust fund my father had set up for me. He immediately cheered up at this, and honestly, I think that night was the first time in months that he'd said anything nice to me when we weren't in public or with friends and family. This very nearly made me want to call the whole thing off. But I spoke with David later that night, and he reminded me that Jake would go back to his usual degrading attitude in no time. We started looking at flats, though Jake was kind enough to let me have the final say and handle the paperwork, because how could he possibly go out and cheat on me if he had to sort out the paperwork for a flat? I was a little surprised by this, to be very honest, as I had always thought that he'd want his name on the paperwork and everything, so that I couldn't kick him out. But by this point, he'd slept with my step-sibling, degraded me, smashed my self-confidence to pieces, and cheated on me regularly. I think by now he thought that I wouldn't kick him out no matter what he did. Anyways, I started taking up extra shifts at my work to save enough money to actually move out. Not with Jake though. Oh no. I was moving in with my friend Emma. We had both been thinking about moving out for a while anyways, and thought, why not just be roommates? We found a cute little one-bedroom flat that was close to our college and work, and started getting stuff sorted to move in. I also didn't want to bring any trouble to my mother's door if Jake started kicking up a fuss. Emma had no issues with clawing the face off him if need be, and told me not to worry about him coming to our front door. Then came the next part of the plan. I waited till a week or so before Jake and I were supposedly moving into our own flats and stole his phone for a few minutes. He had stopped caring about leaving his phone unattended and would sometimes flat out brag about how lucky he was to be able to sleep with whoever he wanted and come home to a little tramp who would make him dinner. So that day when he went for a shower, he wasn't all too bothered about taking his phone with him. Perfect. I went onto his phone, deleted my number from his contacts, and changed the name of his MM's contact as mine. Pleased, I went to the kitchen, smashed one of the plates. It was my mother's, but it was a cheap one from a local shop, and I did replace it as soon as possible. I left for work once everything was done. My mother had left for work a couple of hours prior, so she was safe. I just needed a reason for him to get ticked off. And, oh boy, did he get ticked off. His first reaction was to text me, calling me all the disgusting names under the sun. Except, it wasn't me he texted, it was his mum. I'd texted her in advance and told her that I hoped she'd forgive me, but she had to see what her son was really like. She had never tried to defend him as much, as she just hadn't known quite how bad his behavior was. She'd actually called him out a couple of times where he'd slipped up and been harsh with me when she was there. She went ape crap. I never found out exactly how their argument went, as she phoned him to scream at him and call him out for his crappy behavior, finally seeing how horrible her son was. It didn't help that she had been sent screenshots of some of the times where he'd admitted to cheating. She was absolutely disgusted by her son's behavior and phoned me to apologize on Jake's behalf. It wasn't her fault though. He's old enough to know how to act like a damn adult. He wound up telling his mum essentially that her opinion didn't matter, as he would be moving in with me anyways. Needless to say, when he called me on Facebook, after I deleted my number from his phone, I took some satisfaction in telling him that we weren't moving in together, that the trust fund wasn't real. I had already told him that in the past. He just refused to listen, and that I'd moved in with Emma. I was called all the tramps and beers under the sun. His voice sort of turned into white noise after a while. I told him we were over and hung up. Blocked him on everything. He had to run back to his mum and dad, his tail between his legs, and they took him back for a little while. Though after a bit, the arguments became too much and his parents kicked him out. He stayed with a couple of friends for a few months before he managed to get his own place. His parents, especially his mother, have not been the same with him since. I still talk to his mum on occasion. Lastly, David and I took the liberty of sending screenshots of Jake's abuse to as many people as he'd been hooking up with as possible. A couple of sleepless nights was spent trying to track people down on Facebook. Part of it was to get back at Jake, but most of it was just to make sure that none of them got roped into a full-on relationship with him and had to deal with all the crap I'd gone through. So there it is, my little story of pro-revenge. I know this is really long, so there's a TLDR below. I wasn't ever planning on posting my story, but I was scrolling through Facebook the other day, and one of Jake's new accounts popped up on my The People You May Know section. After talking with Emma about it, she suggested posting it here. I hope it fits in this subreddit. Bye! Posted by user Cinderella Cookie. Titled, I recorded a co-worker loving himself at work for eating my chocolate. Before we get to that part, I need to clarify that yes, I have a video, but I would never post it or anything because I would get in trouble for it. And because it's a ridiculous story, it's up to you to believe it or not. Let's name everyone involved in this. John is my boyfriend, the designer. Jenny is me. I did mostly video. Sarah, another co-worker. She was the best photographer there. Mario, to say that he was useless is an understatement. He's the reason I'm writing this. Donna is the director's assistant, and Amy is the accountant. Years ago, I worked in a government institution where I live. It wasn't a good job. It was basically volunteer paid work that was an excuse to not give employees any security a real job would offer, but I accepted because I needed the money and I had just finished college. I used to work in the communication department with 4 other co-workers. One of them was my boyfriend, still together to this day, and the youngest one, Mario, was a guy who was still in high school and got his girlfriend pregnant. His mum worked in other government institution and she got him that job. That's one of the reasons the boss couldn't fire him. We had to make designs, take pictures, do video, post on social media, check on the press when they wanted an interview with one of our bosses, and many, many other things. Mario was supposed to know about some photography and design because he told us that that's what he was studying at school, but we later knew that he didn't attend school often, so he was very, very bad at almost everything, and we tried to show him how to do his work, but he was really stubborn and lazy. He never learned completely how to do the basic work. He always had problems with many people, not with us at the beginning because he acted polite. That changed later. He was disrespectful when taking pictures. He was late almost every day, and he used to post in social media about government and fight with people who didn't agree with him. Sarah and John would talk to him about how working in a government institution, you couldn't do that. It's simply not okay. However, he never changed and told his mum that we were against him. Mario went to work around 2 to 4 hours a day. Usually John and Sarah would be the only ones to see him because they worked more hours than the rest of us, but he would stay in the office around 1 or 2 hours alone, or they would send him to take pictures for the same time. One day, he had to take pictures of some event practice. Everyone else was off the clock. It wasn't a big event, and he had been working there around a year by that time, so we thought that he could go by himself. The accountant had to go there, and decided to take him with her and one co-worker of hers in her car. He was late again, and that's why he couldn't go in one of the work cars. The accountant left her purse open in the space that's in the middle of the driver and the co-driver's seats. When they went back to the office, she noticed her wallet disappeared. She instantly knew that Mario had to be the one who took it. They began to search him and our office and found nothing. Somebody found the wallet under the vending machine. At first, we took his side because they admitted they never found anything and because it wasn't right to search in our office without anybody else there. Mostly because we had photography equipment that wasn't exactly cheap. However, when we knew how the wallet was found and when we talked to him, we knew it was him. More money and stuff disappeared when he was there, but nobody could prove that he took them. The bosses didn't want to create a scandal, so they let it happen. Our office used to be the conference room, so it was attached to the kitchen, and the director had beverages there for visits. We could use the kitchen, but not touch those beverages. But Mario couldn't even get in there. Anyway, the sodas began to disappear, and the director's assistant complained to us. We said we didn't take them, and she wouldn't believe us. One day, John noticed that our door to the kitchen was broken, and that you could take the lock off easily. With a pencil, we used to find pencils without tips, he took it inside the mechanism, and the door opened. It took its time, but he proved that Mario was getting into the kitchen when nobody else was there. However, that didn't make a difference and nothing was done, not even talking to him. One day, John and me were on our way to work, but I didn't have breakfast, so we stopped at a store. I bought something to eat and a chocolate. I put it inside the fridge and forgot about it. The next day I remembered it and went to check. It wasn't there, and I got mad. John and I checked the trash can, it was clean and empty and we just watched, and we found just little pieces of that chocolate. So we asked for a video camera that someone offered us before. It could record for long hours. I want to clarify at this point that we didn't take that decision of everything you're about to read just because of chocolate. The chocolate was the last straw. For like a year, we had to put up with our bosses scolding us because of him. He never wanted to learn how to do his job, and things were always disappearing, including personal things. The first day, Donna left money in one of her drawers, and left it slightly open so he could see the money. We put the camera in the other building that was in front of ours. We had big windows, floor to ceiling, and you could watch Donna's desk, the hallway, some lady's office, our door, and the director's office. The other building just had empty offices then, but had big curtains. That's why Mario couldn't see the camera. We went home that day and left the camera recording. The next day there was money, maybe because we left one bill equivalent to $5, and he knew we would know he took it. I checked the camera and watched him getting in the lady's office. I don't know what she did there, and he took some of the cookies from her office, but he looked suspicious. Again, with this we couldn't do much, so that night John found an old cell phone that could record for 2 hours. The next day, Donna left the $5 again, but now she left $1 bills and the same drawer slightly open. We placed the camera in the other building, and John disguised his old cell phone with a binder and some sticky tape. That day, he got left alone for a little less than 2 hours and left. John and me had a car, so we were in the mall close to there, just killing time, and then we went back for the cell phone. Oh my god. John watched a little bit of the video before the battery died. He said he saw something weird, but wasn't sure because the screen was very damaged and we were in the car. I was driving. When we got in John's house, we could watch everything he had done inside our office. Not the other camera because the building was closed and we didn't have access to it until the next day. First, we saw him getting in the office, watching some YouTube, everything normal. Then he went out, and when he came back, we saw him putting something in his pocket, but it wasn't clear what. Then we saw how easily he took a pencil, opened the kitchen door, and took something like a yogurt, then he closed the door. Then we could hear that he was watching something like a channel that's very famous in our country. But then we heard noises. Yeah, those kinds of noises. We were supposed to have blocked those kind of videos and websites. I mean, those were government offices, and the IT team had checked recently everything. But somehow, some way, he was watching porn on the computer that I used to work. And if you're thinking he did what you were thinking, the answer is yes. Thank God the cell phone didn't record his hands, but you could see his shoulders moving and him licking his finger. I know, very disgusting. Well, he ended and didn't even wash his hands. I was so shocked and disgusted when I saw that I wanted to cry. The next day, the first thing I did was to call the IT department to clean the computer. We didn't say why because of obvious reasons. John took the camera, and we could watch him when he went out of the office and checked carefully if somebody was around. Then he went to Donna's desk and took $1. He went inside the woman's office and took something, but we couldn't see what. Then he went into our office. We called Donna to our office, and she was shocked. Then Sarah watched the video as soon as she got there. Then the director arrived, and we asked him and Amy to go to our office. We showed them the video. The director was very young and trusted us a lot, so he didn't hold his laughter when the self-love pat began. Amy was a young and delicate woman, so she just turned around and covered her eyes while letting a small scream out. We finally get the proof we needed to fire him. When he got to work, they didn't let him in. I don't know how the conversations went, but I know some of the words exchanged. Amy says, "You stole again, and we told you, and last time we told you it was your last chance." Mario, raising his voice, says, "I didn't do anything. You're always blaming me. We have proof. You don't have anything. All of you hate me. Don't make me show you." "Oh well, show me then." Amy called our office and says, "John, could you bring the videos?" John, the first one, the video camera one, or the second one, the cell phone one? The second one. When he heard that, he was defeated and very nervous. John took his time downloading the video into the computer because it was in mine, and he went to the office that Amy was talking to Mario in. John told me he was about to show him the video, and then he asked Mario, "Mario, do you really want to watch this video?" Mario couldn't even look John in the eyes and says, "No, I don't want to." Amy says, "Play at least the first video for him." And John says, "I don't have that one. Let me go look for it." I admit that I just wanted to see Mario's face, so I went to that office to give them a USB, but he didn't really watch me. Amy says to John and I, "Okay, thank you, that's gonna be all." And we left the office. We know she said something like, after playing the video, "You always said that it was us, and even told your mum that we wanted to get you in trouble all the time. You even told really bad things about this place. You are fired, and we don't ever want to hear about you complaining to anybody else in the Central, or we're going to show these 2 videos to your mum." And he just left. Then we heard that he actually told lies to his mum, like, "They hated me and told lies to make them fire me." But no one ever told his mum, not that I know. Well, this story made me realize that someone could be recording me anywhere I go. I mean, even I did it to someone. Alright, that's where I think I'm going to end today's episode, guys. As always, I really do hope you learned something or just really enjoyed the posts that were put up today. Quick shout out to all my new and existing Patreon and channel members. You should be able to see your name on screen right now, and if you don't, then I don't think you're part of the club, and you really should join the club because it's a great club. And I want to thank every single one of you guys for supporting me in this journey. It really means so much to me, and I love you all so much for it. Thank you for helping me out. As you can tell, I'm now happy and healthy back in Australia. Thank God it's not cold like Ireland. I don't like wearing jumpers everywhere. I prefer the heat. Thank you very much. I know that's an unpopular opinion. Anyway, guys, I really do hope you enjoyed today's episode. I'll see you in the next one. Have a good day, night, sleep, whatever you're up to, and I'll see you later. Bye.